Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, the acceptance of the minutes. Assume all the commissioners had a chance to review them. Anybody have any questions or comments? Move that the minutes be accepted.
Second.
Very good, Mr. Henry, thank you, Mrs. Blueberry. Let me just comment before, just want to make sure everybody understands, we are being recorded by a member of the public today, and we are on a hybrid Zoom as well. And so I need to just vote on accepting the minutes. All in favor, say aye. It doesn't need to be a roll call vote, does it?
There's nobody on the Zoom from the commission, is there?
No.
Correct.
Very good. I'm enjoying having you here. Very good. Let's go with the reading of the financial reports.
Sure. Hi, this is Steve Warren with Airport Solutions Group, also with our brand new airport manager, Gabriel Hanfin.
Why don't you, Steve, come over here. We will set up, we'll have you once again on camera.
Sure, absolutely.
I will say to the commission, we are discussing the possibility of upgrading our,
Okay, so this camera or the other camera?
this one right here. No, just,
Oh, it's right here.
Okay,
It's right here.
yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
The Hudson.
Nice.
But we are looking at the possibility of maybe having a camera mounted on the wall and the technology allowing us to control it from here. Because,
You're going to save me the trouble, right?
no, you're still going to have to do it yourself. Anyway, before you get started, put the paper down.
Okay.
This is Steve's last official duty as our interim ASG manager, and I just want to thank you so much for the past 16 months that you have been here. You know, we contracted for 2 days a week, but you were a tireless constant. If you were needed, you were here. Weekends, doesn't matter. I just want to say on behalf of the commission, we could not have done it without you, and you really, until we had our new manager arrive, and so much going on in the past 16 months. I just want to thank you, and I'm just going to And I told Steve on Tuesday, don't worry, we're not going to give you a plaque.
Thank you.
So it doesn't have any wall space, but,
Thank you so much for the kind words, Commissioner Teffrey. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, looking at our Beverly financials, we operate on a fiscal year from June 30th to July 1, so we're coming up on the last 18 days of fiscal year 23. We'll now be entering on July 1st, fiscal year 24. And the budget is very sound. It will show the different line items. If you have the line items there, pretty much in order. It shows that the budget remains at $566,138, and we think we're going to stay within that budget. So we're looking very good along there. Let's see, with the other business here, looking at our monthly information, you'll see that we have 3 sources of revenue listed here for May. We show our fuel flow fees. We show just a slight decrease. May of 2022 was $7,308 versus this year $7,045, which shows a slight decrease in landing fees or fuel flow fees of $262.80. Just a slight decrease. We do show our traffic counts are increased though, a very good increase in traffic. We'll show last year of May of 2022, 7,163. This year with good weather, 8,763, or an increase of 1,600. Our landing fee revenue is pretty much level, shows just a very slight increase. So it shows last year we had collected 130 landing fees for a total of $13,888. This year we collected more landing fees, 161 landing fees for a total of $13,897, showing a slight increase of $9.39. Shows it's quite a little bit lighter aircraft maybe coming in versus heavier aircraft, because landing fees are based on gross aircraft weight. And from there, if we like, we could segue right into the Airport Solutions Group presentations and then go to the manager's report? Or shall we go right to the
Let's go.
manager's report?
Me?
No, let's-
I'm not a manager.
Oh, okay.
Let's go to the, well, let's do Craig's report first.
And then we
keep-
Then we go to letter B.
Yes,
Very good.
May I ask a question, Mr.
sure, absolutely.
In relation to the expenses year-to-date,
Yes.
how does that play into the last budget or the last meeting we had when the city came in and talked about money like that they give us, like if we are with encumbrances, we're positive,
Mm-hmm.
is that the airport generating one? Is this actually airport money strictly, or is this also part of the city?
That would be, to my knowledge, and I don't know the budget exactly, but my knowledge would be our regular revenue streams as well as as monies that transfer from the city council that come in into the actual operating budget or the enterprise account that the airport maintains.
Okay, so we talked to them just to clarify that.
Say again?
Talk to them, I mean, do we know?
Well, the city right now is finalizing their budget process. And I've got copies, we actually saw it today, maybe it's something we should talk about in the next meeting, that the city budgets a certain amount every year, operating expenses, that they know that we're going to incur above what we cover with our revenues. So they plan for that. That falls into, you know, I believe our budget is around 485,000 this year, maybe 500,000. And some of that's revenue generated here. Some of it also is their allocated amount from the city. So,
And if we were cash positive with operations, the city would not be allocating money to us, and we would have like essentially a standalone budget where the city doesn't provide.
I don't know if, and again, that's a very good question. And like I said,
I think as an enterprise fund,
go ahead.
if we end a year revenue positive, that those funds are probably rolled back over into our enterprise fund. I think if we consistently were turning back funds, the city would probably decrease that subsidy that we talked about at the last meeting to get closer to zero. But I think if this is true and we end up the year with 56,000, they probably just roll that over into the enterprise fund for the following year.
Would we ever want to get a budget document that shows what the city gives us versus what we make and what the difference is and where we're headed?
That was kind of my takeaway from the mayor's and finance director's presentation was like, well, if that's not a doable target in fiscal '24, which is about to begin, what is that real number? Because we didn't really talk about specifics. He just said, we cap you, I think it was $50,000 for the transfer, but that number could be 102, could be 103, whatever the real number is. I thought at the very least that they might start to tell us what that number is, and with some sort of multi-year plan to get that to zero. But we have, I don't know, Paul would know, you know, I haven't seen the draft budget, and I'm assuming this year's not going to change, but it would be interesting to see if they expect us to come to that point at some point.
Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, was one of your questions about the encumbrances?
Well, no, just that we have encumbrances, so there's an offset here, we're positive. I think the commission wants to know how much the city's giving us beyond what we're bringing in from operations and revenue, so we actually know how we're tracking and squaring. We have a more open understanding, does that make sense?
Yes. What it clearly says is there's room for additional education on our part as far as what the budget process is and what our contribution, and at the end of the year is are we under, and what ramifications does that bring to the airport? Now, I will tell you, and we have the director of Massachusetts Airport Managers Association here. We're talking about the training that's on their website that all of you have seen. And one of the statements in there that Commissioners Roundtable, they actually talk about self-sustainability is in fact a goal of all the airports, but most of them do not achieve it. And it is my interpretation, and it did not come up last month, but if a municipality, like a sponsor, wants to have an airport, a thriving airport, that allegedly brings $35 million of business impact into the area. How much of that goes into Beverly, I don't know, but it's the entire area. If a municipality and an area want to receive the $35 million of economic impact, the amount of money that they're putting into that investment every year is minimal, from my perspective. It's a large number. They kept talking, I think, since the director of finance last month had this broad, we may have to bring him in or somebody else in it to sit down and let's chop this thing up. Pardon me. But that's my perspective.
Okay.
I do know, my opinion is that the presentation we received last month had a purpose from the sponsor. It was to tell the story they wanted to tell. But nobody talked about the $35 million that this airport generates, as an economic impactor of this area.
I guess
So, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I
It's just
just,
like as far as aiming, if we don't know what the target is financially, and with you handing off to Gabe, which is great, and then Gabe, you'll start to understand this stuff.
Right.
And then we can start to talk as if we can figure out a new sheet that might talk about how we're doing, and with all the work you're doing in the commission on thoughtfully developing the airport, bringing in revenue, we kind of know what we're starting to aim for.
Right.
Because this to me is actually, it's nice, but it doesn't mean anything as far as efficiency.
I agree. The only thing that jumps out at me is, we're gonna be over budget on legal services, but, but other than that, there's a lot of information on here that I shared this last month, we've never really dived into the finances of the airport. Because nobody has ever come in my 7.5 years, nobody has ever come and said, my gosh, you guys are over budget again, or you're not self-sustaining, and this is a crisis, and you need to adjust X, Y, or Z. Now, I'm happy that that's not the case. They got a functioning, thriving airport, bringing in a lot of cash flow to the area. I think everyone's happy. We would like to have self-sustainability. We are required by federal regulation to pursue self-sustainability and making sure that we're, pursuing development, and also that our fees are in line. And that's something the fees haven't been changed in 5 years. That's something we also can take a look at. But the finance of this airport is something that probably needs to be better analyzed and explained so we have a better understanding of what our requirements are. So
we'll start the bracket.
yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything else on this topic before we move on? Okay. We'll go with ASG. Craig,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Welcome, Craig Shoes with the Airport Futures Group. All right, the airport master plan project, we prepared the closeout documents, sent them the final pay rec, closeout documents to the FAA for final review. So once they approve the final documents, then that project will be closed out in total. The next project is the aeronautical study. We submitted the grant, like I said, May 1st. This has been ongoing on the agenda. FAA has not released their grant yet for the project. We're expecting beginning of July, mid-July has usually been the average. So once they do that, then we can start that project, do the aeronautical study for 1634, which is, remember, we need to do that before we reconstruct 1634. So we have to make sure your approaches are clear. Something should come out of that. The third project, the cold storage building still on hold, still MassDOT funding. I assume you still want me to carry that on my monthly report? I can. I can always talk to Gabe at some point if you still want to do that.
The cold storage?
Yeah.
I mean, they communicated to us in September at our CIP meeting with FAA and Mass DOT that it seemed like it's dead at this point. We can continue to put it on this, CIP for the following years, but I'm not sure does it do you or us any good to discuss it on a monthly basis?
No, sometimes just keep it in everyone's minds, but at this point, because July 1's coming up, right, so it's going to be the new fiscal year for MassDOT, so they're going to be sending out probably in late July letters asking for dates for CIP meetings, like they do every year, and we can bring it up again then.
Yeah, I would just
So we just take it off for now.
Just take it off for now, if they give us any, ray of sunshine that they might
Maybe
support
I'll
it.
take it off.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Would this be part of something we talk in the larger context of hangar, like looking out whatever period of time, 5, 10, 20 years, if we're going to reallocate hangar locations, what we need in the future, where you want to place a cold storage? Has that been decided yet as far as?
Yes, well, we'd have to discuss it more because, forgive me for the name, over by Baker's Hangar, that grass area between the two hangars, we were gonna put a cold storage in there, but if someone wants to develop that, for a hangar space, then.
Because
by all
the
means.
question is, if we start to, if we develop the airport in the future, we bring in more revenue, we start to be cash positive, we're working on a plan for hangars, locations, what's possible, what we want, what we don't want, but maybe put the cold storage.
Yeah, that can go anywhere, cold storage can pretty much go anywhere.
Okay.
The only thing MassDOT doesn't want to do, they don't want to do permitting for it. That's one thing they told us.
So cold storage, this is for storage of the plows and
Yeah,
things
equipment.
like stuff.
Yeah, so, FAA, you're allowed only a certain size building for your snow removal equipment. But we know all airports have more than snow removal equipment, they have a bunch of mowing equipment, mowing decks and all that. FAA doesn't care about that, so they got to sit outside. So, not you, all my airports the same way. They'll need some place just to get that out of the weather and all that and store it. So,
And the price tag for that building is, what were
I forget now, 180, I don't know, some 150, I can't remember, it's been so long.
you're talking about 1.5 million?
No, you're talking about the cold storage building, it's a simple building, it's like a Quonset hut,
Okay.
that's all. We're not talking actual,
It's not heated or?
no, maybe electricity for a light in
Yeah,
there,
just covered.
with, fabric doors or something, or a rope door and that's it, just to get things out of there. Not to have like a concrete floor or anything, probably just like a crushed stone floor of some sort, and nothing really permanent, so.
Okay.
That's all I have right now. So like I said, July 1's coming up, so that's going to be going into our next fiscal year for CIP meetings and CIP as well, just the next project. So,
Okay.
any other questions?
Thank you, Greg. And the airport manager's report.
Back here, fire this up.
Are you bringing new technology on your last visit?
Yeah, I know. The old dog's trying to learn a few new tricks here.
Leave it at the door.
Right, exactly. So May's been a very busy month. Our manager's report for the month of May. May was remarkably busy and productive. Over the last weekend, say the first maybe a few days of the week out of this new month of June, flight level was extremely busy, extremely busy. They had layover jets on their west ramp was full, the infield ramp was full. We actually, with working with the air traffic control and the wonderful people at flight level, worked to put five jets out on taxiway Foxtrot and blimp area. So taxiway Foxtrot used to be a previous runway 220. It's now narrowed for taxiway Foxtrot, but there's still some excess pavement which to be used for the blimps when they have in the past anchored here. But they had five jets parked there, 5 plus 3 plus 2. So I mean, it was just a full house with graduations and all types of things. So the landing fees and fuel flows fees should, for that last part of May, and then beginning of June should really look excellent. But I have to commend Flight Level and 8 Air Traffic Control, they did a fantastic job. Runway 1634, finally completed painting. So busy painting runway 1634, taxiway Bravo, as well as the run-up area. Run-up area on 3-4 was finally completed painting. The project is complete. Thank you, Mass DOT. Mass DOT Aeronautics, 100% funding for that project.
Just real quick on that
Yes.
thing. As I recall, a month ago when Owen Silva,
Yes.
senior engineer for Mass DOT, was contacting us, he did say that there was a portion of what they originally proposed was not going to get done because they had run out of money. There were some bridge issues in the state and that they siphoned money off. Do you know offhand right now what the unfinished portions that
I
they
would-
took out of the project?
I would say that the project on the runway hold areas, they have like a red box, and the red box has stencils with the actual runway numbers, so whichever, if you're facing runway 1634, it'll have 1634, if you're 927, it'll face 9. So it's a red box stenciled by the hold lines, so they didn't have money to pay for those. So those were pulled from the project. So we got beautifully painted taxiway lines, hold areas, and beautiful repainted 1634, but those little red boxes look pretty shabby. So hopefully, maybe they'll have some funds for it, but they can't guarantee it.
So did they, because at one point they talked about us doing it ourselves.
And they never gave us a number.
No, they didn't.
Yes.
So, but my question as far as the, the pilot users of, I don't know what the situation, the condition of it is. If any of you have seen it recently, how bad are they that, and did they give us a determination? Do they have a determination?
They're in poor shape. The red box is in poor shape. I think what the message from Owen Silva was for a airport of ours, like a regional airport like that we presently have, they're not under the AC, the advisory circulars are under the advisory circular design standards for a runway there, for an airport of this size, they're nice to have, but they're not a requirement.
Okay.
So therefore, he kind of will let them go, even though they're really helpful. I mean, the regular yellow lines where the breakthroughs or the hold lines are nice and clear, so I mean, that would tell the pilot exactly where to stop or go through on a hold line. But those red boxes, it's just like kind of like added nicety, added nicety.
Can you give us an example of a red box where it's located?
Yes, right out here on taxiway Echo, you'll have one at the end of Echo there. As you approach down on Alpha, there'll be a couple red boxes by Alpha for Echo. If you continue down Echo, if you're going to cross 927, there's some red boxes there. And they kind of are an added enhancement to the runway markings program.
Not required.
Not required, as Owen said.
How would we go about getting a quote to, just at least have a...
Owen would know. I would assume Owen, I mean, he took it off the project.
Yes.
The original, so they must have had a dollar amount allocated for that portion of the job.
Yes.
So if we wanted, we could always go back to Owen Silva and just say, can you give us the dollar value that you took out for the red boxes?
Just to have it,
Just get an idea, but, because I don't recall the number what it
No,
was.
he was never forthcoming. I was a little hesitant to say, well, gee, how much are they? Because, just knowing the budget constraints. I don't know whether Craig might be able to reach out to Mass DOT Aeronautics and see if there is any kind of a number that might be associated with completing those.
But that's something for maybe the next year's painting.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how often they actually come out.
They try to do it on a yearly basis. They do.
But it might be, if they painted you this year, they might not come back here next year.
Right, right.
Even before your, certificate of hold signs, just up in the air on that.
Right. And I doubt they'll come back just for the hold signs.
Right.
Because they're not even required.
I just had a quick question about the amount of jets that were parked.
Yeah.
Is this like, I guess I'm wondering, is there a way to expand the parking? Like, I know how across from, that paved area on the west side, that was kind of a newer paved area. Was that part of the master plan? Is that something that we can that would be beneficial to the airport, to increase revenue for us, you know, is that something feasible to like?
It does show on the ALP set there as part of the master plan there, and the runway change in geometry is finally taking that piece of Bravo that extends from Beverly Flight Center down to Hangar 4, and then moving the taxiway out to encompass Foxtrot taxiway, and then developing that infield area, which we have part of infield, so that would, you know, greatly expand
The parking capabilities.
parking area.
Okay. But who knows when that's gonna actually
Yeah, it's
start?
in the project, you know, right now, the reconstruction,
Yeah, because, you know, runways are more important, taxiways are more important than aprons. That's how it works.
Right.
We got a big runway project to do 6034 with taxiway echo, so that's gonna be taking up the next 2 or 3 years.
But you're creating like a larger parking area, like expanding on the one that was just expanded, that's like just out of the realm of even.
Well, no, it's not, but the FAA will spend money first on runways and taxiways.
Right,
That's what I'm
okay.
telling you. It's like, not they wouldn't, but they prefer runways and taxiways first.
Gotcha.
That's their order of priority. Even if your priority was an apron, they would still say, well, no, your runway needs to be done. You should be concentrating on that first.
Okay.
Because that's more of a safety thing. I get it. I mean, I agree with you with the apron, but just telling you what FAA.
Yeah, no, for sure.
and then they might look to the actual private enterprise on the airport, the
Yeah,
FBO, they say, Lee, gee, if you need some space, our priority at the FAA level is runway, taxiway, apron, but we only get runway, taxiway, we go right back to the runways, but never, you know, we can't see in the foreseeable future we'll get to your apron. The FBO might take it upon himself, well, the traffic we're getting in here, we're gonna undertake this project and, you know, based on the engineering that is available and the airport layout plan, develop this area for additional parking, which they have done. They have that little infield
Yeah,
portion.
that was done by
Right.
Ken Robinson. before.
Yes,
It was done by-
exactly.
Is it feasible to, if the FBO did want to do that, would it be feasible to have a percentage of the FBO, percentage of the airport and the FAA? Would they be more inclined to, or no?
No, yeah, it's still a priority thing that's, you know, it's important.
The FAA always, the FAA always resets back to the center line of the runway.
Runway, work your
So
way
that
out.
as a project, say the center line runway's fixed, they start working their way, whoop, the center of the runway's available, they go right back to the center line of the runway, then they start working their way out. So
Exactly.
it might be a long time to get to that snowplow that you really need.
Exactly, that too, yeah.
So the bottom line would be more like, to be fast-tracked by virtue of the FBO initiative.
Yeah, I mean, MassDOT through their ASMP program could purchase it, you know? But that means that's at 80%, 20%, so they're not gonna pay 100%. So if it's, you know, $2 million, you know, it's 20% of that, 40,000, is that right, 400,000?
200,000?
400.
That means you're gonna have to come up with that money, you know, so, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, so it's,
And then there's obviously the cost benefit analysis. I mean, is that large of apron really going to attract that much more business? I mean, the event was an anomaly to some degree for graduations.
I just don't think the jet traffic has been ramping up slowly but surely, so I didn't know.
Right.
I wanted to at least put it on the table.
Well, that's a conversation we can obviously have with our FBO. You know, how often are they running into issues?
It's a situation, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, or
Or
do
stay.
you need
Or
it?
stay.
Do you need it, and should you build it?
Those are good questions to ask.
They are, absolutely.
Did you turn away any business, any jets that you couldn't book?
I don't think we turned any away, but we could absolutely use more space, especially this time of year. So I know we have a project, now that Dave's here, because it requires 7460. When our predecessors expanded that infield area, the paver screwed up the outermost portion. And we've got our contractor standing by to come in and fix that, which would actually give us enough space for maybe another 3 or 4 jets at any one given time. So that'll make a difference. And we would absolutely, at a minimum, participate in adding even more apron space, because, I mean, I see the trajectory going in one direction.
And that's what the master plan talks about too, is clearly hangars and space, so, yeah, it's, you're constrained right now, and if it gets any bigger in the future, you're gonna have problems.
We just have to get more and more creative and working with the tower and that sort of thing.
Just continuing back on that with the runway 1634 painting, Just have to say there were multiple escorts and multiple NOTAMs that were issued. Call out the extra good work of our airport employees, Bill Fury and Dave Paris. They were great with staying over, coming in early, staying over late, providing escorts. I provided all the NOTAM issues. And I have to, again, commend Beverly Flight Center, Flight Level, Aviair. They all did a fantastic job in working with us and working with everybody. With this painting operation, we did have to shut the airport. So about 10 o'clock that morning, we shut it for about an hour and a half. It was open for rotorcraft, but we did have to shut it because the runway intersection was being painted and had to dry. Everything worked fine, and we continued on. So again, calling out all our fixed base operators, our flight schools, everybody did a fantastic job and the painting was completed. Let's see, I think Craig touched upon the aeronautical study that the FAA were participating in. Is completed and submitted to the FAA and Master Aeronautics. We have the signed airport layout plan and master plan. They are available on the website, so we do have the airport layout plan. Airfield grass mowing is continuing. It's doing what it does best this time of year. It's growing, and our airport crew is doing a fantastic job. We're working with Mass DOT Aircraft Registration, Rudy Giandrea, in making sure that some of the people that he's reached out to that are based here in Beverly, if they haven't registered the aircraft, he's sending a second round of registration requests. So Michelle Brickman and I and the new manager working on any aircraft that are outstanding or missing in action. Also, just recently, the tower, air traffic control tower, Mary Parsons, we signed a letter of agreement for Taxiway Bravo. From Beverly Flight Center down to Hangar 4, there's a little portion of Taxiway Bravo, a letter of agreement that allows airport equipment and personnel that are used maybe towing aircraft or something moving between Beverly Flight Center and Hangar 4, not to actually have to call the tower, but to just visually inspect the area, visually inspect the taxiway, and provide their movement in that area there. We also have a letter of agreement which allows people to walk from, or the airport employees walk from Beverly Flight Center to the infield area. So if flight level employees or Beverly Flight Center, we have a letter of agreement that allows them to transfer back there. But this letter of agreement addition will allow them to go from actually Beverly Flight Center down to Hangar 4. Okay, and then let's see, air traffic control and just recently, last week, air traffic control held and they're trying to hold either quarterly, little kind of meeting between air traffic control, base pilots, and any of the pilots that want to come to right here in the conference room, and they put a little briefing as to, flight operations in Beverly, what the recent phraseologies and everything that, hot spots that might exist on the airport, and how just to kind of get everybody to know each other. So the base air pilots are, and the flying club, which is New England Aero Club, they're on that list that air traffic control reached out to us. We just recently had this past Tuesday, and it was well attended.
So she plans on having that
She does.
every quarter?
Yes, quarterly. Mary does plan on having this quarterly, so now with all restrictions and everything, she thinks it's a wonderful thing, and I agree. It's great for the pilots, the flight schools, and any of the pilots that wish to attend. I think it's very beneficial. It's just like the commission here, like we get to know all the people, the major players on the field, from fixed base operators to flight schools to everybody here. It's very nice. So I'm glad that Mary's reinitiated. I think this is the second one she's held.
Very good. I know that it'll, from my perspective, did you want to say something, Jeff?
I was going to ask Kyle, I know you attended, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was really good. And actually, for the noise abatement committee, like, this was really great news that the tower was talking about maybe limiting the amount of people in the pattern at one time and keeping it down to like 3 or 4 people at any given time. So that might help with our outreach to the community, telling them that there's the potential for less touch and goes going off constantly, or 5 or 6 people in the pattern, and just for safety purposes.
Well, that was doing my comment. I think it's for working with neighborhoods and having the tower communicate directly to the pilots in this kind of format on a quarterly basis, I think will be very beneficial.
Yeah.
And maybe, more of us can show up, even those of us who are not pilots, to participate in them. I think it would be a good tool to, increase the communication with the pilots to the tower. I'm hoping that they're successful and attend.
There was instructors and everyone, it was really great, a lot of back and forth, people had questions, there were a lot of answers, and I don't remember the controller's name, it was Bill or Brian? Is
Brian?
Yeah, he was great, had a great presentation, and answered a ton of questions, and, it was,
Well, that's it. It's kind of takes that mystique or that curtain away that the people in the tower are human as well as the pilots and the students are human. So everybody kind of gets to understand each other.
I'm sure,
Yes.
flight school's heard this a lot, but the other day I heard the controller kind of lose it and said, stop, nobody else can come into the pattern. He was having a hard time keeping track, and he just said, all right, nobody else can come in.
I
Shut the
can
pattern.
remember busy days,
Like they do very often.
calling out number 7 downwind. So I mean, there were seven people, and you just had to, kind of keep a visual inventory of where you were and where they were. Absolutely. So that wraps up my manager report.
Well, thank you. Your final one after.
Yes.
Assume you're
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Steve, thank you so
I
much.
won't be a stranger, but
Yes, come on down whenever you're in the area, okay?
continue.
Thank you so
Right.
much.
Yes.
Well, the next order of business is the introduction of our new manager, Mr. Gabriel Hannafin is here. Why don't you just walk over here? I'm not sure if anybody's even on watching.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go, why not, I can just say, welcome.
Thank you.
I know we're so excited you're here. We're also so excited that, your wife and your brand new son are here with you.
Yep.
We gave you an extra couple of weeks, well worth it. I will tell the commission, I was in the office, I came in here, I think on Thursday, and your wife and 2-month-old son were, in the office with
Yeah.
them. Wonderful, so.
Yeah, stop by to say.
Why don't you just tell the commission a little bit where you're at and what's going on?
Yeah, of course.
Personally, not the airport. but just-
Yeah, definitely.
just a
So-
week. Yeah.
What?
Your week anniversary.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, 1 week, I came back, so.
Yes.
No, so I want to kind of piggyback off that, Paul, and I know that this, filling the manager position has been a long and arduous process. And so I just want to say on behalf of myself and on behalf of my wife and 2-month-old, how grateful we are and how much it meant to us that you allowed me to take those extra weeks. We think that spoke measures about the community and the career that I'm stepping into. So that means so much to us. So thank you to the commission for that. We are settled. The move wasn't a lot smoother, I think, than we were expecting. 19-hour drive. I did it in a 20-foot U-Haul. No cruise control, so, and then my wife Elise and our newborn son Blaine came a couple days after me, and he did wonderfully on
They
the
travel
trip.
fly.
They drove, yeah, and she had her mom with her to assist, so, but Blaine did fantastic. We're so happy to be here. We are loving the area. We're living in Peabody, and feel pretty settled in, and are now excited to get out and explore and go see new places. It's weird seeing things that isn't just flat cornfields that we're used to in western Illinois, so we're really excited to be here.
Oh, good. We're glad. Is there anybody have any questions before we continue on? We're glad you're here. There's a lot of work to be done.
Of course.
We which, you know, you have full knowledge, at least partly there. We don't want to dump too
Just
much.
enough so we'd say yes.
Yeah, he's still, yeah. I came out today just to make sure we came back one week after thinking about it all weekend, so he stayed.
No, I'm
So
very
that's good.
excited. I see so many awesome opportunities at Beverly. This seems to be a great airport with lots of great opportunities, and I'm really excited to be along for the ride and get some fun new things going on here at the airport and achieve some of those goals of growth and better infrastructure. And that's what excites me. So looking forward to it.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for
Thank you.
for coming up. Well,
Yeah. Please, yes.
okay, we'll, we'll move on. Chairman's comments. Progress update on the Phase 1 environmental site assessment being conducted by Weston and Sampson. Just to let the commission know that that vendor started working on the ESA probably 3 weeks ago. About 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, I met two gentlemen from the staff. We walked the entire perimeter of the 11 acres on Airport Road, and they were very interested. I will tell you, I think I sent you the photographs. There's the one photograph on the back side of Wayside Trailers. You know, you can see that it's in a state of disrepair, and I think some of those have not moved since 2012 when they first moved in there. There was no contamination, there's nothing like that. But I will tell you, we were unable to get into the carpenter shop, which they needed to do for part of their report. Mr. Collins and Mr. Spencer from Weston and Sampson, they're getting together, I think 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday or Friday. So I would assume that by the next meeting, they will be ready to make a presentation for us when they give us the report. So things are moving along well with that. Any questions? Update on real estate appraisal to determine storage rates for parties using land on Airport Road. I will tell you, I reached out to the same real estate firm that has appraised the, Building 45 and Airport Road property. This is the 4th time. I asked them, I said, is there a chance that is there a rate that we should be charging everybody that's using that land back there? Can you do a quick assessment for just storage space? Not a full-blown lease occupying and utilizing the land and buildings, and he says there is such a thing as a restricted storage use only. So I talked to Bill LaChance. He completed the report. I think I forwarded it to all of you. I did forward it, okay. I'll tell you again, just to repeat in there, the dollar per square footage on an annual basis is 56 cents, which is about twice as much as as I understand it, doing some of the math, if I'm doing it correctly, what Wayside Trailers was agreed to in 2015. The first lease was in 2012. 5 years later, they wanted an additional 20,000 square feet across the road. So they kept it basically the same rate as they added square footage. But considering that the FAA has told us that we need, this is the city of Beverly as well as the airport, need to be in compliance, the usage, if you drive back on there, and maybe you should all do it tonight when you leave here, and hopefully it'll still be sunlight out. Drive through there. It looks like a huge parking lot at a Taylor Swift concert. And I did go. Anyway, it's, you know, and we get nothing, except for Wayside Trailer, we get nothing, you know, and the FAA knows that, and they know that is not a compliant use of that land. Go ahead.
Is this something that we can have the lawyers come up with a fresh lease? Is our lease with them on a month-to-month basis at this point? I know you had said there's like a 90-day stipulation if we wanted them to be gone. Is it an easy
I think
thing to renegotiate that?
Yes, I think it'll be easy. You know, I don't know what their response is gonna be. I know well, it's under new leadership. The gentleman, I think, founded the company, died of COVID, premature age, yes, and his daughter has taken it over. But I will tell you, the new dollar figure is about twice as much as what they're paying right now. But I believe, you know, it's an easy fix. Say we're, you know, take a look at the lease. I don't know, as far as the duration, it's a year situation. Just from the Wayside Trailer, I will tell you that, you know, the appraiser, he says, you know, Paul, I want to let you know, because I told him the issue with, you know, Wayside Trailer and everybody else who's using that land back there free of charge. He says, you know, this is not the role that you're paying me for, but I have parties that will gladly pay the 56 cents if there's land back there at that rate, or if Wayside decides not to double their storage costs. But again, considering the state of this equipment, I mean, I was even going to contact the city solicitor's office, because I read the lease. There was nothing really in there. I mean, I don't know about, you know, if a lessee allows the equipment to go to this condition, are we in a position to be able to, it all depends upon the lease, what it says in the lease, but, you know, we don't want that space back there to become just a junkyard that they just walk away from 50 years from now, you know, so, but there's not much language in the lease that really addresses our rights, but we should be able to, at least with Wayside, say, you know, we've had it reappraised, the rate is now 56 cents per square foot on an annual basis. It's significant, you know, and, you know, you've got 120 days.
Well, I mean, also too, if there's multiple parties that are interested, I mean, we could go to the highest bidder. I mean, we don't have to stick.
Well, we'd have to work through the lease process. We have a lease with somebody.
No, of course.
We'd have to end that lease, you know, and we'd go from there.
I just know that, like, I've seen things where, you know, there can be some good money to be made renting out vacant lots to,
Yes.
you know, the right.
I will tell you, in my going through the filing cabinets, I found that, I'll use his name, Tom Ford, who was the, you know, owner of the large building that's being built on the corner of San Fonzo and, you know, big beautiful blue thing. He actually rented space back there on Airport Road for about 8 or 9 years, and the commission increased the fee, and he stopped paying, and they had to go through the eviction process to get him out of there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so there's history of, you know, tenants having their lease rates increased, and then, you know, us having to deal with it. But that may be ahead of us. Go ahead, sir.
I'm not trying to jump ahead, but I think for me, part of trying to connect all the dots, I think hints back to something that Josh said before, which, you know, I think last time we were here, I asked a question about how Building 45 tied into all of this, and I guess I'm at a spot where, and maybe I'm looking at Gabe to kind of play ringleader for us, where it's like, we've got Anderson and Krieger now talking to the city about the 2 or 3 sites that they're running. I guess I need like an understanding of where are we with all of it? Like, what is the status of 45? And if we have Anderson Krieger on, can they kind of help, you know, maybe with Gabe's assistance, kind of explain to us what are we at? Because the letter wasn't just like, you know, I know it was focused on the city and that what they're doing or not doing, but clearly we have other parties out there that aren't doing much better. And I'm sure that's also technically covered by the FAA letter, right? If we're not
Yes.
maximizing that revenue. And I guess, to hint back to what Josh is saying, for me, it's, well, are we shooting for self-sufficient? I mean, I feel like just saying to the world, like, we're just trying to grow, we just want more money for what? Because ultimately, we're trying to do what? I think, for me, I need those dots connected. I hear about, things like we want to be able to pay for striping on the runway. Okay, well, that, I could get behind doing that. But for me right now, it's just like, what is the goal of this? I get it, we have to come into compliance, but what do we want to do with it?
How does it play in the bigger picture?
Yeah,
And
like,
does that affect, Paul, does that affect the development up in this, up in the area where you're talking about Sampson, Weston and Sampson? Would that be aside, away from the actual physical development of the property they're looking at? Or is that?
Regarding what?
Isn't that part of it?
the phase one is
No, that's,
That's part,
yeah, that's part of the 11 acres.
So we wouldn't want to necessarily ask Wayside to move out, so we bring another leasee in and then say we're going to move that leasee out because we're going to develop the land. Like, we want to do
just
things.
trying to build the book.
Yes.
Right,
What do we
I
want to do?
agree.
yeah.
I think the one, oh, sorry.
Back to Wayside, when does that expire? When does their lease expire?
I believe it's on a yearly basis. There's no, it's not a 5-year lease. I think it's an annual lease. What month of the year? I have to go back. It's easy to find out.
It could be tenants at will.
The original lease in 2012 was a tenant at will. And then 5 years later, in 2017, they made it a straight lease.
So the lease rolls over, like if we
Yeah.
don't say no, it's just rolling over, so we do at least have that.
So
Yes.
I think we need to know when that lease expires, and then also we need to, out of fairness, let them know that we're considering
Doing something
doing
different.
something different, whether it's increasing the rent, or we're going to ask them to look for another location.
Well, there's got to be something in the lease that they signed originally stating how much time notice that we have to give them.
And we need to know.
Thought I said 90 days.
Well,
There's
there's
a
a-
90 days before, like if, we had a 90-day window to like, if we
It's
gave
100
days.
We have a 120-day notice to terminate the lease.
Okay.
So if we want to just end them occupying that space at all, we can give them a 120-day notice and they have to leave. But if they're in the interim of any kind of actual usage, I mean, I'm hoping they're willing to pay the new fair market value. If they're not willing to pay, then I would say we would be allowed to terminate the lease. But again, I would have to, defer to some city official that might be able to get this down the road.
I have a comment about the flight schools and flight level and businesses on the field, that while we're talking about developing these things, that we also, I don't know what we can do to help the businesses on the field currently. In addition, this is in the same picture, but working with Gabe and how, like, we don't know much about what the tenants in the field want to do for their own businesses, so we talk about developing the properties and all these things.
And that's,
What can we do?
I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, we're restrained.
We haven't heard much from them, though.
Right.
The question is,
Well, let's put that on next
when
month's
can the committee
meeting.
Hear from, whether it's publicly or meeting privately with Gabe and
Right.
you.
But I just want to get, I mean, we're getting off the topic
But it
of,
still goes to the same, the whole
Yeah.
big picture of.
Right.
We want to craft a next couple months, where are we headed? Gabe certainly going to lead us and help us. We're not used to having your help, so we're going to find where.
That's what I'm here for.
You have to calm us down and kind of give us information, but Paul's done a great job. Everybody's really trying to, it's a new commission, as you know.
Right.
But I think we're looking for leadership, and Paul's been great, but there's a bigger picture. I don't think a lot of us really.
well, I agree, there's definitely room for even the talk about the need for apron space, So I think I think an interesting part of reaching out to the vendors, the tenants, and maybe bringing them in and having a conversation, do you have a 5-year plan? What is on your, future development needs? How do we get in sync with you that we can work in concert? So I believe that's something that we can do just as effectively as Mary's doing on a quarterly basis to talk to pilots.
And the stakeholders, all the stakeholders kind of come together and shaping the vision.
Of course.
Yes.
And that's, I think, in the tower too. Tower has probably a lot to contribute in terms of,
Right.
what we do.
I know that Gloria had a a series of stakeholder meetings. I don't know how long those stayed effective. Any participants? I know she had a couple, maybe in 18, 19, I don't know. COVID happened in 20, it shuts everything down. But there was, I think either monthly or quarterly stakeholders meeting. But whether a business plan development is outside of just stakeholder operational, but those
Yeah,
are
and I think the OML concerns that we need to talk about either publicly or happens in small conversations with, but I think as a commissioner and all the commissioners, we want to know how we can help, what their vision is, where, they've been very patient for a long time, so.
Yeah, and I think it's worth having even a public meeting. I mean, I think all the stakeholders includes the public too. And we all are part of that, developing the vision for the airport going forward. So, I would
Agreed.
I would definitely invite us to kind of begin planning in that direction.
Okay.
Let's make a motion.
I always send out a notice if anybody wants to add anything to the agenda, please let me know. I'll leave that to the two of you to develop those agenda items and we can begin that conversation.
Sure.
But just getting back to the real estate appraisal, I will, again, I believe everybody on the commission knows that we have a federal regulation obligation to maximize, our revenue potential. I will tell you for 20 years, airport managers have been attempting to get the city to pay for its use of that land. And letters had been sent, back
We have lawyers working on this.
no, we do not. We do not? We do not. Their mandate is strictly the lease of building of Airport Road, the carpenter shop. That's all they're working on. As far as all the other trailers and all of the other, equipment that's being back there, all the boats that are back there, that's on us. That's up to us. But I will tell you.
Why do you think the FAA, you think the FAA somehow knows about that and knows that they expect us to deal with that right now?
I will say the right now comes when they sent that letter to the city, but also to us, that both parties are non-compliant with the airport revenue. That was the urgency now.
So why would the boats and all the stuff that the city's using be all,
Right, why aren't we talking?
why isn't that all in one? Because if they're using the land, and they're not paying for any of it, then
Right.
if we want to get something, I feel like it should be all the same, right?
Well, and I said, if you
or at least
were,
have things moved
Well,
into their actual allotted area of.
Do we ask Gabe, Gabe, how do you want to move forward on this stuff? And the issues we're bringing up, ultimately, you're going to be the one that do it day to day.
well, I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah.
I believe he is not the person. This is a commission issue. This has been a commission issue
I just
that,
mean like getting him in, where we talk to him and he might be able to provide.
well, okay, but that's a conversation we can all have.
But yes,
I will tell you what I told the FAA, and I think I copied you all in response. I guess even they wanted to wait until September, until the new guy's here. They want to work with the new guy. They don't want to work with the commission. And I said, no, the city of Beverly. And I said, we are not waiting for the new guy. You've had 3 airport managers. You've not been able, none of them have been able to get a lease from the city. So now we got the FAA involved working with the commission. And I told Gabriel, I said, my intention was to not get him involved one-on-one with the city. I said, I would rather have the mayor or the city solicitor and their attorney come here in a public format and negotiate right here with us. I do not want the airport manager going into the city by himself, sitting in front of, having the same presentation that we got last month, and then the mayor and the city solicitor and, and their purchasing agent, deciding what they will do. But that's exactly what happened in 2015.
Do we know for sure that they are not including the boats and whatever else?
Yes.
We know for sure that they're only talking about the
Yes.
the buildings and whatever else is floating around, they know.
Yes,
Are they only asking us about that, Paul, because that's all we've told them about?
yes.
Right. So let's not,
Can I just, do you understand?
I guess I'm saying,
we have
Paul,
fought for,
in all fairness,
yes.
the sense of urgency here is of our own making.
Well,
Like, we have a little bit of time to do this right.
Absolutely.
I don't think it behooves us to rush headlong into this. We have Anderson and Krieger, we're paying top dollar for their assistance. Gabe's gonna have to get involved in this.
Sure.
We're not sending him to the wolves, this is what he does. We have an excellent counsel with expertise in aviation. To me, I want him to. I don't
Yes.
want to do this. I mean, it's
I will
gonna
tell
go
you-
bad if you have me negotiate with them.
Yes, but here's my frustration. The exact same attorney that we're using right now, Jennifer Platt at Anderson Krieger,
Yeah.
worked with Gloria for a year and a half. And Gloria and Jennifer Platt could not get a lease from the city of Beverly.
I think that's the past that we've already established, that the city's come in and agreed saying, we are ready to talk, and here's our financial guy, here's the, they're ready, so I think.
And there's a big stick from the FAA saying.
Yeah, I don't think we're at any,
Unless
I mean, I
you
think
comply.
if we tell our lawyers, say, well, hey, I think the city's been very, accommodating and talking with us and being open.
Well,
I think we just say to the lawyers, like, hey, well, what are we gonna do with these boats? If the boats are that big of a deal too, I think we should, if we're coming up with a lease, we should have a footprint of what their land is that they get and have that marked off and say, well, you have these boats, we're gonna give you an extra half acre, quarter acre off to the left of the carpenter's building, and let's store the things there, just.
okay,
Yeah, we're with you entirely. I think your concern is that it's gonna fall through again, and we're all
Right,
showing
yeah.
you, there's not a chance it will ever happen again. Like, it's gonna change, it will take months, or maybe, as long as it takes.
Well,
And it's also.
It will never happen again.
let me just jump in here.
One
Go
just
ahead.
a jointer here is that also this is tied into the kind of the plan for that part. We're going through assessing, what's the best, how can we optimize this land? And that's part of the question, that's included in that question.
Right.
So I think it has a place, and we're not gonna let that fall through again.
Just to jump in here,
Yeah.
on May 26th, the FAA contacted me a week before, and says, we want to have a conversation with you. And I said, I would like to have Vice Chair, Commissioner Henry, and Commissioner Zubrick join that call. We had a 35-minute conversation on May 26th. They briefly touched upon, they said, we believe, the FAA, that this should be wrapped up in 30 to 60 days. And if in 30 days, this is on May 26th, it said if nothing has moved forward, they even suggested having a face-to-face, bring all the parties together, the attorneys, the city, the commission, the FAA, and we'll just all try to hammer it out in 30 days instead of 30, 60, 90, 120, which I thought was wonderful. I will tell you, I reached out today to our attorney and asked for an update. And of course, she says nothing's really happened in the last 2 weeks. For the most part, she was gone for 1 week. But the city is still adamant, or their position is that they, again, and I will say, in May, after the presentation and hours went on, I said, they're gonna pay fair market value, but they're gonna try to come back and backfill everything that they spent on building 45. And a couple commissioners said, oh, I didn't see anything, I don't believe that's the case at all. And of course, their position is, they now want us to add all the costs for building 45 onto the lease that they, want for building 43, which is the carpenter shop. So, and the FAA told me, says, we're not gonna allow that to happen. He says, and they told us on the 26th, we are writing another letter to clarify exactly what, we're not gonna allow that to happen. They're gonna have to split the cost, they're gonna have to do the due diligence, and break down all the expenses. Now this is like a 2-year run of all the expenses, Salem Plumbing, Moynihan Lumber, Dawson Hardware, the $60,000 new roof, and try to break it down. The FAA, they're adamant, they believe these are two completely separate projects. And I will tell you, just to tell you where we're at, and I find it interesting, if not sad. And I'll just go to address this. One of the things that, this is a chart of list, I think I gave it to you two. It shows on here, this is a run that they generated in February of 2018, and says, we took the $287,000 for building 45 and building 43. Well, the fact of the matter is, 2.5 years later, when the mayor went before the city council, he says, city council, we want to move $287,777, and we want to spend it to refurbish building 45. And then he goes on to say all the city departments that were going to be in there. And they didn't say anything at all about, the DPS's need for a carpenter shop. They didn't talk about, Airport Road. It was all for building 45. So to me, and please finish my thought here, this is a clear example of the two projects were completely separate. The FAA thought them to be totally separate. 2 different proposals went to the FAA. Now, even as early as 2018, the city is trying to put both costs together and then hold that as repayment.
Isn't this, it sounds like arbitration where the FAA is going to be the arbitrator. Somebody's going to have to decide what are we missing here? The city can't dictate the terms and neither can we. It has to go down the middle, but who's going to be the arbitrator who decides where the line is drawn? Because the city sounds like they're just saying, this is how we want to do it, and that's how we're going to do it. We're not going to talk to anybody else, we're going to do it this way, here's what we want.
Do we have that in writing? Do we have that statement in writing from the city that they're lumping it all together?
No, I think
Well, today, the attorney says that they're the two, well, actually it was in the presentation that we got last month, where it shows they're saying that they have spent $680,000 on those two buildings. And that's where, they're lumping them all together. There's no breakdown of, well, what did you actually spend on the carpenter shop? No, all we know is how much we spent on the two together.
Well, and we know what Anderson Krieger says, how it's going to be handled, and how the FAA says, the city can tell us what they want to do. That doesn't mean it's going to go that way. Do you have any sense of, in 30 or 60 days, how the city comes to the table and has to decide on something not of their liking, but it is agreed upon by both parties to be acceptable? How do we get there?
Yes. I will tell you that today I reached out to the FAA and said, based upon my conversation with the attorney, that I've been very slow, there's been no change, and all she knows is they're still trying to put the combined $680,000 on the table. I told the FAA, I said, I would love to take you up on your offer to have a face-to-face with all the parties. I think that's the only way we're going to resolve this. And then I did also ask for clarification on, yeah, I lost it for a second. But the response that I got, I said, because the other part of what, they do not want to pay a monthly fee. The $4,000 a month. What they want to do is say, we'll talk at the end of the year. Well, a big reconciliation at the end of the year, all those costs every year, that, we're not self-sufficient, so we don't think we need to pay for anything.
Well, how about,
And that's where we're at. Those are the two points I'm most concerned about. Go ahead, sir.
Understanding that, I guess at the last meeting, we authorized Anderson and Krieger to start the negotiation process with the city. So I think all we should be doing right now is looking for an update meeting with Anderson and Krieger on how that's gone. Don't take this the wrong way. we've got to let that process go. I mean, I think you're continuing to push, and I don't know that's going to help us. Can't be calling, in my opinion, we should not be calling the FAA directly at this point. The only thing we've done is said we need to talk to Anderson and Krieger about all of this. And I think, given some of the confusion about why is it not including other properties that we now know would be subject to that FAA letter, to me, you know, maybe in the next 2 weeks, somewhere before the next meeting that we get together, maybe we can do something where, I mean, and I know, Gabe probably doesn't know all of Massachusetts laws yet, he's only been here a week. I'm assuming we're allowed to enter into executive session to talk about lease negotiations. I know in other aspects of my work, that's totally doable. I feel like that would be ripe for Anderson and Krieger to give us an update, and that way we can instruct them as to what we're thinking. I don't think it's productive to do that at this table.
Right. I will say, and I understand your call for the possibility of an executive session. Myself, you know, I'm in favor, even with the city solicitor's assistant sitting here, you know, just personally, talking about.
I'm fine to do it in open session, but I don't think tonight,
Well, I realize, but
we're not negotiating with anybody right now other than ourselves, and that's not
Right.
good for government.
But I just wanted to add, as far as, you know, the occupancy of the FEMA, okay, I asked the FAA, I said, they are a federal agency. Do you know of any, all the yellow box, you know, or the green box? That's all the FEMA trailers back there, and road signs and whatever. I said, is there any exemption for another federal agency to not pay fair market value to the, you know, it's federally obligated by the FAA, the land, you know, is there an exemption? And the FAA came back and said, absolutely not, they should be paying fair market value. The reason they do not pay fair market value is because FEMA allows the police department to utilize the firing range. It was a quid pro quo between FEMA. FEMA says, you know, can we park a bunch of our tractors or trailers on your end back there, and you can continue to use the firing range? And both parties said, sure. What about, well, and there's nobody's paying, no.
It's an issue, it's been an issue. Let's get into a place where we can talk about it and be productive about it, because right now it's just.
Well, what I'm asking, you know, with the new information, because I was wanting to get an appraisal, what is the storage rate? Now that has came back this past, about Thursday, I got it, 56 cents square foot annually. What I want to do, and I want to ask the permission of the commission to send a letter to FEMA saying, you know, first of all, here's the FAA informing us and the city that we are non-compliant with the airport revenue. You have to begin paying fair market value for the use of that land back there. Here's the rate. You've got 120 days to begin paying.
Is there anything that the executive director of Lambda might be able to shed light on this from his perspective?
And is there a lease on that property?
No, there's no lease.
It's just a handshake.
It was rammed down the
But to see, Paul, don't say it ran down. We don't know how the arrangement came to be.
Well,
We have no idea.
I was here, it was like in 2016, and a lot of consternation that the airport manager said, you know, they wanted this to happen. And the difference is today is the FAA would not come to the table. It's a local issue, you need to work it out. They got tired of saying that for 7 years, and that's why they sent the letter. They are now at the table. And I'm going to try to use the authority of the FAA, thank goodness, as much as possible to get FEMA to pay fair market value.
But you gotta get the rest of us comfortable with
I understand.
how far you're pushing.
Well, that's why I just want to, but again, this conversation has gone way afield of just addressing the appraisal of 56 cents per square foot and the need for FEMA to pay fair market value, the same as Wayside Trailer pays fair market value. The agreement between the city and FEMA left us out. It's almost, and I will tell you that I was told by people that know that, you know, there's a footprint for a firing range at the new city police station downtown Beverly. You know, so they have this space to build a firing range if they want to. So in essence, what the city is saying to us is, you know, we don't want you to collect revenues because it's financially advantageous to us to be able to use that fire manager. So they're forcing us out of the equation, and we're not getting any revenue. FEMA's getting off, scot-free. And
Let me say something
go
real
ahead,
quick.
sir.
How come the newly appointed airport manager isn't going to be a part of
He will.
understanding,
He will.
give him some time to kind of understand, his duties, roles, and priorities, right?
Well, we'll bring, my position is we'll bring him along with us.
Okay.
And he will, ask as many
He should
questions.
be in front of
He
us.
needs to be in
I
front
think
of
he should
us.
be in front of us.
I don't think we can speak for the city. I think that we should stop speaking for the city and say, well, this is what the city wants, because we don't know what the city wants. This is a new commission. I know there's history, but I think we have a new manager, we have a new commission. We are like setting a new precedence here. I think
We want to support him.
I think we should go to the city, and I think 90% of this stuff should, like lease stuff, should go through the lawyers. If we want money from FEMA, we talk to Anderson Krieger and say, hey, this is what it is, contact them.
Help us
Like,
get
don't,
this right.
yeah, don't, I don't think it's on, I think it's on us to contact the lawyers. I don't think it's on us to contact FEMA directly, because that's just gonna put us in a bad position. If we say the wrong thing, if we go about it the wrong way, if we get upset, that's why we have these lawyers. And I think they should be able to handle that entire property and do that for us. And we just tell them what we want, and they'll go at it how professionally, how it should be done.
Well, let me,
So 30 to 60 days, 60 days comes up, and we talk to Gabe, we talk to you, and either the city's starting to talk and play ball, or we talk to Anderson, Krieger, and Gabe, and we say, city still is trying to dictate the terms, what's our next legal step? Will we actually, and this is where Gabe, we don't want to, he's not going to be interacting at the legal level, but as far as responsibility, Gabe says, I've taken this as far as I can go, Anderson, Krieger says, here's what we recommend, and then we formally file a complaint with the FAA, and, whatever the due process is, but I think, yeah, like Aaron's saying, maybe let the 60 days play out. I mean, I know, I appreciate where you're coming from, but you've done.
I mean, and I go so far to say, that the next July, if we can have Anderson Krieger prepare, where are we at in 3 weeks, right? It's 4 weeks, I think that's that's halfway through the 60 days, right, or a little more than 30 days through.
I mean, if we start to have problems with the grant assurances, because if the FAA says, hey, you're not getting the money because you're a city, you're not doing what we're asking you to do, the city will probably perk up and say, okay, well, what do we need to do? They want the money coming in, so they're probably, some.
And I think speaking in hypotheticals is not beneficial to anybody. I think if we just kind of make things up and say, well, this could go this way, or this could go that way, or I think I think that's just not, that's not moving in a positive direction. Just making things up, from my experience, has never been a good, just like letting your mind go onto these things. I think we should, again, just stick to the facts and stick with our lawyers and with our new airport manager and go for it. We all voiced our opinions on this, and we all have the same goal. We want to make some money off of this land, bottom line. And let's just, I think the best way to do it and not make anybody mad, because if we make anybody mad, you get more bees with honey. So let's use the honey in this and not get upset with people and not call out the city, and I think we'll make.
We want to turn a new chapter. We want to work together
Yeah,
and work, as a positive and practical steps forward. And I think it's a great, and you've raised some superb, excellent questions, Paul. You did such a great job of, bringing things up to the surface. And now I think we want to stand behind Gabe and give him our, full support and attention and help him, navigate some of these.
But the one thing that is concrete is billable hours. I would just caution contacting
That's
them over
true.
and over and over again, because they are coming
Yeah.
every single minute.
Yeah.
It's very expensive for us to be using them. Gloria spent $15,000 and couldn't get it.
But we've opened this can of worms now, so
Right.
there's no turning back at this point. We've said we've opened the billable hours can, and
Right, but to have the same presentations over and over again,
Right,
to
it's
different people, is
just
just.
not beneficial.
We need to be effective with the resources.
Yeah.
So.
And I assume you and Gabe have talked about this
Yeah, briefly.
as much as you can, just, I mean,
Yeah.
or, I don't know if you can't because of OML.
No, I was like,
It's a different relationship, so, yeah, I would assume.
just going off of what the FAA told us, and when they said, we think you should be able to wrap this up in 30 to 60 days. I got a pretty good sense of if we're gonna, if you go on a different timeline, it's gonna be.
Well,
I was disappointed when the city said they had to get an outside attorney for to handle the lease situation. I knew that that was going to slow everything down, and, you know,
Well, again, I mean, this, it's, to me, I'd rather take an extra 30 to 60 days and get it done right. And
Right.
get to a spot where we find we spent all this money on high-powered lawyers, and we only straightened out this one building and the 11 acres in the back that we're spending money on to develop, we didn't do anything with.
right.
We gotta do it all. I mean, we gotta get it right once.
It will be interesting when we go to the city and say, you know, there's the issue of the boats and the gravel yard, which they created, you know, the gravel yard, have you seen that? I don't know, that's back there, they just built that DPS, built this, you know, station, you know, for 5 different types of soil back there. So if we go back to them and say, well, you know, in addition to the 39,000 square feet you are trying to get a lease for here, we also want to tell you we're going to add, I mean, I don't know if we can effectively, and I'm going to talk to our attorney, but should we pursue getting paid for this separately from this, or do we now tie it in?
I think what
I'll
we need
ask
to
her.
do is sit with Anderson and Krieger and say the FAA letter technically covers all of the non-aeronautical land. And it's, now that we're diving into it, it's not just the city of Beverly that's probably non-compliant. We probably have other tenants in the area who are non-compliant. Can you help us with all of that? To me, it's all the same question.
Well,
It's just a matter of your lease with this one's gonna be 59 square foot times,
Right.
it's gonna be 59 cents times.
You should be able to get a
five.
blanket statement for the
And
whole.
we're just, yeah,
chunk
right,
and
we're
say,
just saying, this is what it's worth.
Right.
You want half of it, you want a third of it, and you want
But
whatever.
that 30 to 60 days is arbitrary. If we go to the FAA and say, hey, we need more time, we're working on it. I mean, they rarely stay on task with a project, they don't finish when they say. So we can say, we need some extra time, but, yeah, we will keep this moving, absolutely. I mean,
I just would hate to see the FAA's idea that this should be done in 60 days, and we take 120, and the lawyers are getting wealthy on us, and we're just gonna go over budget. I'm just saying,
Well, that's why we need to be strategic in how we're approaching them and how we're approaching all.
right.
I have to agree with you entirely right here.
I will say that in every instance, an airport manager would handle the lease negotiations for tenants. They may reach out to the city solicitor for details and language. We have a boilerplate, you know, basic tenant lease. I hear, you know, in 2012 and even 2017, when Wayside Trailer contacted the airport manager that we want to lease 60,000 and then an additional 20,000, the airport manager handled that lease negotiations. Again, with some assistance from the city solicitor, and then through the channels. By all means, my opinion is it's reaching out to FEMA is they're the exact same as Wayside Trailer. I would think that we would just have the airport manager contact FEMA because they're not involved in at least to go.
We have nothing, we reach out to them, what are we saying to them?
We're saying,
I'd rather us have a plan before we reach out to them. We have to have a solution
Definitely.
on the table
Polish,
before we
yeah.
reach out to these people.
right,
We can't, that's the FEMA cash for the entire Northeast Massachusetts. We can't,
what can't we do? Can't charge them fair market value?
no, we can, but I think we have to be cognizant of like that. I think,
Well, the
I don't want to just wing it and start
No, I know.
calling FEMA and saying, get off our property.
No,
That could
no,
have,
You could theoretically contact them, say, pay rent, and they say, we don't want it, we have an agreement with the city, say, talk to the city, but you're paying us money, and the feds, you know, they tell the city, you're not gonna get a brand insurance if you don't collect.
Yeah.
Again, we're getting into hypotheticals.
Yeah, I don't want to-
and I don't want to go down the rabbit
None of
hole
us should be
anymore.
calling
I
FEMA.
think,
I
yeah,
guess I would say that. I don't think any of us should be calling FEMA. That to me is a bad idea.
Very bad idea. I think
Well,
that's
it's
just
not,
agree
we're
or
not
should-
calling FEMA, the idea Paul's saying is we gotta collect rent from them and now. And we don't wait for the city, we're gonna tell them we want rent. And if they say we don't wanna pay, talk to your lawyers, whatever, we want money for rent. That's what Paul's saying is, we're not gonna drag this out. We want 60 days, we want FEMA paying rent. And if they can't do it, maybe 61 days. But this isn't gonna go 120
No,
or a year.
I agree with that, but I'm saying, to me, I'd rather
We
have
don't
that.
care about FEMA's financial problems.
No, I get that, but to me, we talk to the lawyers and say, how do we approach this situation? Because since this began, it's now involves FEMA. It now involves Wayside Trailers. So we've got a private company, we have another federal agency,
Yeah,
and the city,
But Gabe's
and, yeah, and the FAA.
Gabe's gonna do this, Gabe will go to FEMA, he'll find a contact and say, hey, we need to collect rent. And
I
he will
agree
learn.
100%, because the FAA has already told us FEMA needs to pay fair market value. Now it's incumbent upon the airport manager or the commission to say, hey, hello FEMA.
But I
I'm
think
not
this is-
saying that they're not going to pay, or that we don't have to bring them into the tent.
But I don't think, we don't need to get our lawyers involved in this.
Or-
This is a typical situation that an airport manager would handle.
So
Just
is
like
there,
Wayside Trailer walking through.
Yeah.
I hold no special place for FEMA or any other federal agency or state agency, whatever the case may be, just because they're FEMA.
So I don't think that's what he's saying at all. He's just saying that he wants to have his ducks in a row before we go
But
and
this
charge,
is-
because we're not gonna charge FEMA 56 cents and then go charge Wayfair, whatever they are, 75 cents, and like.
But this isn't so much a bigger picture. We can actually go to FEMA, we can say, hey, can you talk to FEMA and tell them we want rent? And that has started, that conversation has started, and then we started another conversation. I don't know if we have to get the lawyers to put everybody under one umbrella.
No, it's not everybody under one umbrella, he's just saying like, at least get to 11 acres, like, okay, this is what the fair market value, this is what we should be doing, this is how we go about it, and how we can get each person.
is
Well,
there
they-
any,
But we still have to tell FEMA in 60 days, you gotta start paying rent. How much, we don't know. We have to, what's that?
So-
120.
That's what
Yeah.
Jason-
Is
We
there-
call them up and tell them, that I don't understand what the confusion is.
is there any downside to first calling them FEMA and saying, hey, you owe us rent? And then if there's some pushback or some issue, then coming back.
But I mean, do you want a 3-year lease? Do we want a 1-year lease? Do we want a 5-year?
Well, so
No,
this
we're
is-
just saying, starting the conversation.
I understand, but to me,
Yeah, so-
without understanding that we're doing a phase 1 assessment, because in the next 12 months, we're gonna put that parcel out to RFP for a giant office building. I don't know, I'm just making this up.
Well,
You know, now we just signed the lease with FEMA, because FEMA rolled over the next day and said, here's your 3-year lease at 59 cents a thing, and now we're
and
like,
do we
oh,
know
that's
that
good.
that's what we want, right? And so that's
Right.
a very good question, and so that's
We've got term on all of these people.
If we
That's
ask the
gotta be-
Well, we
questions-
wouldn't have to negotiate, we would actually stipulate when we sign anything with anybody, here's how we're gonna do it, it's our airport, it's these terms, so we can
dictate
kick
the
anybody
terms.
out at any time.
Just
So
like-
we're gonna tell FEMA, you gotta pay rent, we want it now, we're not happy with this, go talk to the city, but we want rent, and the Fed's gonna cause problem, you know, the Feds will rain on the city, and then the city will go talk to FEMA, and it's like, it's not our problem. It's,
I just want to jump in here. If we just look at FEMA alone, the worst case scenario, if they said, we're not going to pay the approximately $8,000 a year for that, where our trailers are sitting on the green. So they open up their gate and they drag them all back on their property and line them on the perimeter, or they trash them and get rid of them or whatever. FEMA is the easy one. I understand what you're saying. We don't necessarily want to attract a new tenant and then sign a 3-year lease, which ties us, our hands with the development. I agree, you probably don't want to do that. But again, we've been told that we should be dictating terms. If, just like in Wayside Trailers, at least right now, there's a 120-day termination notice on our part. All we gotta do is tell Wayside Trailer or any other future tenant, we'll give you 100, if something changes dramatically, sorry about the inconvenience, but here's your 120-day notice, we're ending this lease, because we're gonna build, a $40,000, a 40,000 square foot building there, or at least somebody else is gonna build it. Because all's right now, I think FEMA is too easy to address. Wayside Trailer is, they're gonna pay the fair market value, or they're gonna go away and take away their dilapidated trash barrels that.
That's getting us money. What they're doing with their trailers on our property. is-
Right. But keep in mind-
They're paying rent, they're the only people paying rent, why are we kicking them off?
Well, I'm only saying, because they're paying half as much as the land is worth, and we've already been.
It's twice as much as anybody else is giving us.
Well, I know, but
What is the problem?
I want to double what they're paying to get the fair market value. And if they're not willing to pay it, we've already been told by a real estate person, says, I can find you people who will pay
We
that.
have to RFP it anyway, so we're not negotiating with anybody.
I think to Eric's point though, is we don't lose sight of the planning aspect of this, because if we do that, then we're behind the bus as opposed to having, we want to come, make sure we're still at the lead in deciding with all the stakeholders how well we want that land to do. And how.
But the FAA, we have a mandate. I don't think, I'm with Paul, I don't care about any of that. I care about getting the rent now. We tell Wayside we're gonna double the rent. If they can't pay it, they're out. We'll start to RFP, but we wanna move it forward. I don't think we wanna sit around and wait for people to figure out their own plans. Paul's saying, we're the commission. We're gonna nicely say, hey, pay up, like, we're changing things, we're upping the rates, and if we lease land from FEMA and they wanted us out in 4 months, Beverly Airport would be out of their property, so these are just these.